Are we live again? Someone didn't exactly lodge a complaint, but basically said, "Can you put some stuff on the Rock History Canada channel?" And I said, "Yeah, we can do that." Hi, everybody. Learning this Stream Deck a lot more, and I want to practice it, so I'm coming on and off a lot. And as you can tell from the albums behind me, this side, you know what I mean. There's Burton Cummings back there, the Arrows, Boulevard, Rush, Charity Brown, and Chilliwack. I'm a big CanCon fan. I like Canadian content. I used to syndicate a show across the country, 46 markets. It was the only market we couldn't get was Toronto. We got all the majors, all the. Of course, I'm wearing my April Wine Standback T-shirt. This was an interesting interview that I have never shown before. I've been going through my files and realizing that there are interviews that my son Chase put together that I didn't get a chance to put up for whatever reason. I got busy. I kind of lost them. And I feel and I don't mean to disrespect Christopher Ward a lot because he's one of my favorites. I used to buy Christopher Ward's albums back in the 70s. I loved his music. I was very happy to see him when MuchMusic, the Canadian equivalent of MTV, launched in the 80s. I was so happy with it. Erica M and him and all the other DJs, Steve Anthony, they were just amazing VJs. For a guy like me who had started radio around that time, it just meant so much to me to be able to learn from these guys and watch them do their interviews. And Christopher Ward, and there's going to be some faux pas moments that he talks about certain people that he's interviewed coming up on this show. We've got, we ask him, by the way, you're called Canada's first VJ many times. Is it true? Also, an interesting Neil Young story. Another one with Alannah Myles, which is the title of this video, where he met Alannah Myles and their first date did not go as he thought it would, but it ended up being a better thing. It's an interesting story about Black Velvet, a good interview thing with Sting, MuchMusic and how it ended. And there's another really good one on here. Motorhead. Oh yeah. Lemmy. The best people you can interview are really, I think some of the best people are VJs because they've been there live you're live. And you never know what's going to happen, right? So first of all, we're going to ask Christopher Ward the question. Hold on, let me just open my thing here so I can have this open. We're going to ask Christopher Ward the question that everyone wanted to hear. So are you Canada's first VJ? Because you did, what is it, City Lights, or what's the name of the show you did?
Yeah, it was called City Limits, and it was kind of it was set up to be a precursor to Much. It was an all-night video show in Toronto, Friday and Saturday nights, midnight till 6. It was pretty crazy. And then they got the license for the music channel from the CRTC, so we shut down City Limits and kind of, folded it into Much. And then J.D. Roberts, who'd been one of the co-hosts of the New Music, became my fellow traveler as we were the first two through the green screen and launched MuchMusic Labor Day weekend, 1984.
How'd you feel? You'd already had experience though doing the other show all night. So, I know I've been at launches. I've been part of launches of radio stations throughout the years. And I always get as comfortable as I am in my skin. That first day, I always get nervous. What was it like that first day?
Well, typically at Much or at City TV in Toronto, whenever they wanted to launch something, they'd have a massive party. And it would just be, filled with people yelling and screaming and drinking and, all the madness that goes with it. And you're there trying to eyeball a floor director. And it's like, okay, we've got the spoons ready to be interviewed in 30 seconds, and you're like wading through the crowd. And so it's almost like the logistics of doing it mean you're too busy to get really nervous. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, there we go. We used to do it on Friday nights, doing live videos, and the logistics are kind of weird because anything could go wrong when we were doing ours. with Shannon. Henry Gross, you know, the guy who sang Shannon, Springtime Mama. We had Charlie Morgan, Elton John's drummer, on. We had Liberty DeVito, Billy Joel's drummer, Steve Porcaro of Toto. Oh, we had quite a few people on. Marcus Eaton, who is a great guitarist in his own right, but played with Graham Nash. Was it Graham Nash? David Crosby. And you just never know what's going to happen. So a lot of these interviews are fresh. They've never seen the light of day and we're going to get to the story on Alannah Myles is just like a precious story. But this is Neil Young. There's a little Neil Young ditty we're going to play for you.
And, you know, I mean, I kept my notes, my little 3.5 by 5 cards, and, you know, they tried to keep them as unobtrusive as possible. Although Neil Young called me on it at one point. He said, he looks down, he goes, "Oh, says, I wish I had all my answers written out on a little card like that. Then I'd be really smart, wouldn't I?" I said, "Well, you might be a little over prepared, but yeah."
I have been caught in the early part of my career, and I always have notes. I have notes down here. I'm not using them a lot on this one because this is sort of a fly at the seat of your pants video. But I've had notes before where it just comes in really handy to have them there. You want to know what the next question is. "Hey, Martin," he said, "awesome. Thank you for joining us. The Canadian channel isn't as populated as, of course, the international channel that we have. So I've got maybe 20 interviews that I didn't even know I had, not counting the 30 interviews from before we talked about, that we can put on. This next clip, I was nervous with George Benson. Interesting one. You'll like this.
Who were the guys who made you nervous, or were you that type of guy? Because you're a musician yourself, so you come from that end of it. That's another thing you had. Anybody make you nervous when you were interviewing them?
Leonard Cohen.
Really? I saw that picture of you and him. Yeah.
I was terrified. I think because I grew up reading his poetry as a teenager, and I was so moved by it, and I learned so much from his work. And I just thought, this is like God walking into the room in a black suit, you know? And he, of course, as you might have expected, turned out to be the most gracious person you could imagine. Very genteel, very generous with his time, and patient. And it was a pretty great experience, but that was the one that kind of had me most terrified. I mean, of course, we did have George Harrison live at Much, so
that picture too. Yeah,
there was a lot riding on that one, shall we say? You know, I'll tell you a funny story about that. He did 2 interviews. He did me, and then he did a morning TV show on, I don't know which channel it was, CTV maybe. And at one point, the woman who was interviewing him interrupted him, because George tended to be very sort of, he had a pace to his speech, and he had an idea and he wanted to get it out, and he wasn't rushing. He wasn't a typical interview subject at all, you know, kind of boom, boom, boom. And she jumped in, and then he stopped and he said, "Do you mind if I finish?" And it was like, ugh. All I could think of was like, if that was me, I'd have gone, taken my microphone off, left the building, and never heard from again, you know? I mean, so that was a moment.
But how do you prepare for George Harrison?
I've been preparing since I was 14, John. I could not have been more ready. I was in a constant state of readiness. But it was, there's one moment that went viral, which has been seen like well over 2 million times on YouTube. Well, I asked him, because I'd heard this thing just a week or so before, that Paul McCartney was considering making an album of cover songs, including a whole bunch of John Lennon songs like Beautiful Boy and Imagine and that kind of thing. And I said, "Have you heard anything about this?" And he goes, "Paul?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, doesn't he have any good ones of his own?" And I was like, "Oh, well, now we have that on tape." And he goes, "No, it's true, you know." And it was just the classic offhanded sort of, you know, Liverpudlian attitude, right? The best moment was one that no one saw at the very end of the interview. We finished the interview, we stand up, we're rolling a video, and the chaos just returns to the room at Much, as it was always there, you know, phones ringing and people running back and forth. And he stands up and he looks around and he goes, "This is a very casual program." And I thought, oh, there's my own personal moment of Beatle wit. I'm going to take this with me from now on.
This is a very casual program. The guys at MuchMusic, very much like MTV, they these musicians were doing the circuits, right? They were promoting something and they were there. Hey, Diane Smith, I'm on again to support. Obviously, I have nothing going on this evening. Neither do I, right? I enjoy your videos and chats. Maybe Shannon can pop in and say hi again. Maybe she can. She's downstairs. Danica's not having a really bad night, our autistic daughter, but she's not having a good night either. And so we've decided this month we will go live. It's the coming month. We will go live at least once a day because there are interviews that need to be done, and putting them on live like this is a lot easier than, hey, Kim Trickle, is a lot easier than producing it. We just put it on and it's done. You know what I mean? You can understand, see our point of view of doing this. We're going, why don't we do this? Where are we? We're talking to Christopher Ward, who was by many known as the first Canadian VJ. Christopher Ward was also a well-known musician, and he co-wrote Black Velvet. That's coming up. I want to save that for near the end. There's not a lot of clips on here, so bear with me. But this one is about how MuchMusic ended, and it was a sort of a sad thing for a lot of people. It certainly was for me.
That kind of stuff. How did MuchMusic end? How did you guys not do that anymore?
Well, you got to remember, I was there for the first 6 years. I left at the end of 1989 for one reason. I had a hit record. And I got to pursue what I'd always wanted to do, which is be a songwriter. Things evolve and change. People are very nostalgic about the early years of Much, which is why I wrote that book, Is This Live? Because it represents a period in people's lives of incredible self-expression and innocence and just, something that you want to bottle and have it with you forever. But realistically, John, things change. People grow up, and Much itself had to grow up. It couldn't be, this wacky adolescent forever. It just wouldn't have worked. So those that were around in the very early years, of course, didn't necessarily like the changes that it went through and felt that maybe it invalidated their memories of what was once great. I don't know. I shouldn't try to read people's minds, but
He's a cool guy, isn't he? I've always wanted to talk to Christopher Ward. This next bit is probably one of the meatiest pieces in this whole interview. Let me just make sure I've got all I've got all the people on here. I like coming on at night, and it's not always the best time for YouTube to come on. YouTube has told us that the majority of our audience is on between 2 o'clock and about 5:30. And where we're past the pocket here because it's 7:12 here. Motorhead, Christopher Ward, musician, co-writer of many hits, most notably Black Velvet with Alannah Myles, and we're going to get to that story in a second. But right now, Motorhead.
But it was somebody was away or something and said, "Oh, you're hosting Power Hour this week." I'm going, "Oh, okay." "Oh, your guests are Motorhead." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I did a little reading. But they brought in a 26er each. Lemmy had his 26er of Jack Daniels, and Filthy Phil had his bottle of gin underneath the chairs where we did the interview. And they pretty much finished those bottles by the time the hour was up. And at the end, as I'm giving away the life-size Motorhead poster, they ate it. So, bands have always been outrageous, usually on stage, but they just took it to another level doing interviews and stuff.
Yeah, that's Motorhead. Thanks, Lemmy. Christopher Ward. I remember there was 2 albums I had of his when I was growing up, and I didn't pay full price for them. Canadian artists sometimes were not in the deleted bin as much, but they were bargained. And I remember I used to shop at Zeller's, and I have to look at my journal, but I'm pretty sure I bought them both at Zeller's in the 70s. And I enjoyed his music an awful lot. And I hope you're enjoying the interview. The next piece is a story about Sting. Oh, Sting. I got some Sting stories myself. I might share them after this clip.
I met Sting once. It was at the Grammy Awards after Alannah won, and it was this big event that was happening at the was it Roseland Ballroom maybe, and because Alannah had won, she had like a kind of a prime table that was kind of very near all the action, but it was a tiny little circular table, and so just she and I were sitting there, kind of like being the Canadians, watching all these people going by, all these like incredibly famous people, right? And Sting comes right up to the table and looks me in the eye and goes, "Hello, Alannah." We're going, "I'm Sting." And we're going, "Well, yeah, no, I admire your music."
Wow.
And he just like swivels like a boat, that's coming about, and then just boom, off. Doesn't even acknowledge me. Doesn't wait for her to say anything. But it was just, I don't know. It was just such a classic moment.
Sting. I met Sting in 1980, I think it was, and I've said this story before. Sting, Stuart Copeland, Andy, they were there signing Zenyatta Mondatta, the one after Regatta the Blanc, and they were all there, and they were like just bouncing off the walls. They were very young, and the kid in front of us, and pardon me if you heard the story before, the kid of us, I think he was about 14 years old. I'd love to track that kid down, who's obviously a man now and has kids probably, and probably tells his story a lot. He knew a lot about the police, a lot more than I did. And by the time he got up there, they were just, again, bouncing off the walls even more. And the kid looks at Sting and says, "You guys must be really tired doing this big, long tour," because they were performing that night. "How would you like to come to my house and have a home-cooked meal?" And Sting looks at the kid and says, "Yeah, but does your mother F something?" Kid picks up his autographed albums, just turned around, then I said a word, and left. And when I was interviewing Stuart Copeland a few months ago, I felt like telling him that story. And just to see his reaction. And who knows, maybe he would remember. Maybe he heard it. He was sitting right there. As far as I remember, Sting was in the middle. And I called my ex-wife. I'm very good friends with my ex-wife, Lynn. And I spent a couple of weeks with them a few months ago. Justini, thank you for your super chat. Appreciate it. And she said, no, that's the way it went down. And Lynn forgets nothing. So sometimes you wonder, I got to be careful here because I don't want to say this story wrong. Okay, we've got how many more clips? We've got two more, I do believe. Okay, hold on. If this is not the same one again, I'll take it off.
I like the Alannah story. I just found out this morning. I didn't know you guys were dating. You go back to her place, and in pulling out anything, she pulls out a guitar.
On our first date, yeah. Yep.
So, how did you meet her? How did that, who set that up? How did you meet her?
Wow. You know what? I don't remember. I think we met at a party. And yeah, but I didn't know that she was a musician.
And you liked her stuff, right? When she played that music, you saw something there, right?
No, it was just mind-bogglingly great. I mean, she had just this huge voice and with all this power and richness of tone. But what she didn't have yet was she didn't have the rasp. That she acquired through diligence. Because she wanted that Tina Turner thing, And I think she eventually found that she could trap, like milk or something on the back of her vocal cords, and that would help give her the rasp, believe it or not. Isn't that bizarre?
Alannah Myles. I had a friend who interviewed her, and he said she was a little snappy, but she was good. Because those kind of interviews, the John Mellencamp interviews, the certain phases of Elton John interviews, certainly Billy Joel, David Lee Roth is that type of interview where if the person's snappy a little bit, it ends up being somewhat nerve-wracking, a little, I guess. I'm not in the room with them, so it's very easy for me. but it's always a good interview. It's always good sound bites. And one more from Alannah Myles' story with Black Velvet with Christopher Ward, singer-songwriter, and just an all-around nice guy.
Looking back, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's humbling in a way because I don't know what it is about that song that has that breadth of appeal or that durability that you're talking about. I'm grateful. I'm moved by it. And it's that thing when people come up to you and go, "Oh, that song meant so much to me because I was doing this at this point in my life," and blah blah blah. And it's either that or we conceived our son to your song.
Yeah.
But it's. I think humbling is the right word for it. It's because you don't know what you're doing when you're doing it. You're just trying to write a song, right? And that's all we were doing. I mean, it came about so casually because I already had the verse and the chorus kind of mapped out. And I was working on it on my own at home. And Alannah and Dave Tyson and I were working on songs together for the record. And Dave said, man, it'd be great if we had a shuffle. And as you know, a shuffle is that bump, 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 bump kind of beat, right? Yeah. And I said, oh, well, I happen to have this thing I've been working on, and I played what I had. And Alannah just was like over the moon for it instantly and just started wailing on the song. And but that's how casually it came into the group of songs. It was like, yeah, we need a shuffle. Oh, I got something,
Some of the best songs, you look at the Beatles for an example of that. Some of the best songs are written quickly or they just come naturally. I don't know how it comes, but it's effortless.
As long as it comes at all, just be grateful. Yeah.
I'll say it again, all around nice guy. And I'm embarrassed that I totally forgot about this. Thanks. ALZG. Fit to Be, tie-dyed says, there's nothing like a solid blues song being sung by a sultry female. Hey, well said. And yes, by the way, someone asked, did Sting really say that? Yeah, and Sting had said before we get back to Christopher Ward, my Sting story, Sting has said before that he is embarrassed by some of the things he did when he was young. That was a lot of fame. He was younger. That was a lot of fame really, really quick for the Police. And on the way to the autograph session to see the Police for the Zenyatta Mondatta signing, I had Regatta Blanc and Zenyatta Mondatta. Hey, Fraser, twice in one night. I know. But I was just looking through my interviews and I'm trying to get used to, look at this. You fans bought this. A StreamYard Stream Deck. I'm getting used to it. So tonight went, and thanks Fraser J for saying that a while ago. Tonight went a lot easier than it did last night. After last night's fiasco, where I didn't know I was clearing my throat and the video was playing. Now by default, when I'm playing a video, it will mute by default. That was the default setting. I don't know what happened. Diane says, I have been watching from the beginning. Did you mention the year of this interview? This interview is about a year and a half old. Yeah. It's a lot longer than this. And I've only found 8 or 9 clips. And I'm not sure why that is. There's a reason for it because I have things like cut 3 is where it starts. Cut 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But there's more to the interview and I'm not sure where it went. I'll find it. But that's kind of the way it went. Fraser J, top right, mute mic button. No, but it mutes by itself. Our thing is programmed to when I play a video, Ecamm, which is what I use to stream, will automatically just mute my microphone. It took a while today because I was trying to get my microphone in, my SLR camera plugged in to automatically be in this mixer that I have, which is basically a keyboard. That's what they are. Anyway, Christopher Ward did incredibly well for himself as a singer-songwriter, and he's just a modest guy. But I used to like his understated way, very comfortable way of interviewing people. There was just that thing of when you interview someone, as you can imagine, it's like you talking to someone. There's something you want. Either you want to get to know them better, you want them to tell a little bit about you. If it's normal, just two people talking, not interviewing. I don't talk about myself too much in my interviews because I only have so much time and I got to get as much as I can out of this person and get the sound bites that I need. Even if they've talked about it a million times, it's important for me to say, I used to say to artists, I know you've told the story a million times, but I don't own those clips. I need for you to tell me that story again. I don't even say that anymore because it goes without saying that they know I need that. So, but when you're interviewing someone, there's always that thing. They need to sell something a lot of the times, and or they just like being on camera and talking about their story. I mean, most of the people I talk to, their stories are amazing. So they don't mind talking their stories. Fraser, I would love to help you as I am totally into the stuff of your Fraser J covers. Yeah, but the only thing with that, Fraser, is I many people have asked, is, oh, I'd love to help you cut up your interviews. I can't let those interviews, and that's the only help we really need. We can't let someone have the interviews in their studio because there's so much off the record stuff in a lot of my interviews. Because I've been doing it for 41 years, I'll know someone that they know, or else I've interviewed someone they know multiple times and I'll have a quirkism. I'll say, hey, are they really like this or whatever? And I've been doing it long enough so they trust me that it's not going to get out if they say something off the record, right? So after 30 or 40 interviews, I forget what the first interview, I forget what was said. Unless I go in and do what I'm doing here. Because I had to listen to all these clips before I came on because my son Chase did these clips, but I couldn't trust him. So that's the only help we really need is to do interview chopping up and getting rid of my ahs. I get rid of the ahs of the artists as well, the people who I talk to. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this is just a short one. I wanted to put something on this is on both the Canadian channel, Rock History Canada, and also on Rock History Music, because Alannah Myles' Black Velvet was a big hit in the US. Well, copyright's not a thing I worry about because I don't play music. I don't play music, so copyright's the only thing that we really don't worry about. I mean, I'm doing an interview with a few unknown artists that should be really well known. And they told me, oh, no, put my music on. Just put the chorus on so people can get a feel for my music. And I go, I don't know if I want to do that because I'm so afraid of YouTube saying you've used someone else's music, you've lost your channel. You get 3 copyright strikes, you lose your channel. So there you go. Okay, very long-winded. From now on, like as you noticed in the beginning, you saw this. Now, we can do that now because it's a little button. That's the first button I have. And when I sign off, I'm going to put the long one on, which is just sort of it's a nice little bow tie, right, for our interviews. But anyway, thanks for everyone who's come on. I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chats. If you ever want to donate to the channel, there are links in the description of this channel for PayPal. A lot of folks have supported us through PayPal. You can buy a t-shirt on Teespring. A lot of people don't want t-shirts, so they go, oh, I'm just going to help you out this way. Or else you can join our Patreon, get early access to our videos as well. I'm John Bowden. I want to thank you guys for spending some time with me on your Easter weekend. This is Rock History Canada and Rock History Music.